Hey, welcome back to yet another episode of the Gypsypotamus Experience podcast. I'm excited to share this lavish conversation that my friend Brian and I had, and it just scratches the surface into the ecological world on this planet. We cover some topics including plant intelligence, invasive species, and some other ecological issues going on in the world. He's a qualified ecologist and spends his days essentially protecting nature from itself. Might sound counterintuitive, but I'll allow our chat to speak for itself. If you enjoy this podcast or any other content put up, please hit that subscribe button to be notified of any new podcasts or posts. Also, check out the Gypsypotamus Experience on Facebook, Gypsypotamus on Instagram and Twitter. Thanks for listening in and enjoy the podcast. All right, dude. And just like that, we're here.
We're live.
We are live. Today I'm joined by my buddy Brian here. He does forest restoration or is a wildlife restoration.
Yeah. Both are correct.
Yeah. So he's into...
I'm not on screen, by the way.
Oh, shit, dude. What is that about? What the fuck?
I can't get much closer.
All right. Welcome to the official Gypsypotamus Experience podcast.
Thank you.
How's it going, Brian?
It's going well.
Excellent.
Thanks for having me.
Yeah, dude. Thank you for being here. This is my buddy Brian, and he works for the plants, as they say.
It's true.
So tell me, dude, is it wildlife or forest restoration? Which
both.
umbrella?
Both.
Okay.
Yeah, it's ecological restoration, right? So,
okay.
Ecology or ecological means that it's a system consisting of both living and non-living things, and that is a ecosystem. So what I try to do at work is restore degraded ecosystem for the wildlife, in forests and prairies, savannas, bogs, all over.
In terms of how is it degraded, just from natural disasters or
mostly
like
from
human
invasive species
influence? Okay.
Human influence and invasive species that got here by human influence.
Oh, okay. It's just from different regions that they've never been here before. They kind of just came in and took over.
Yeah, right. Yeah, I kind of try to think of it in like anthropomorphize it. Some plants are just kind of like Nazis, and come in and like master race sort of plants that just fuck the others over, and so we fight against that, essentially.
So that's also going on a plant scale, apparently.
Yeah,
not only on
what's
human scale.
Pretty cool is there's this thing called allelopathy, and that is essentially chemical warfare that's going on between plants.
Okay.
So, yeah.
That's pretty fucked up.
Yeah, there's a lot that we just don't see.
If you really consider it just a substance is... a certain entity that's also alive. Plants are completely living beings. Would you call them beings?
Yeah, absolutely.
Yeah, there's a lot involved, man. I think the research more recently has been in their favor of being very cognizant, organisms on the planet. Like they're actually quite aware of many things, in their environment.
Yeah, it's a symbiosis with fungi, and the trees communicate and plants communicate.
Yeah. Are you talking about in terms of like mycorrhizal fungi?
Right.
Okay. Yeah. For anyone that doesn't know, it's supposed to be there's what's basically like an underground web of mycelial connections, and what that means is it almost looks like a cotton, like a fiber, right?
Yeah.
Have you ever seen it?
Mm-hmm.
Okay. Yeah, it's like a mat, right? It goes through the entire way through the dirt.
Yeah, it's like a web.
Yeah. So it's basically like the internet for plants. Like that's what they're connected to. And then correct me if I'm wrong. Usually the mycorrhizal fungi attaches to the nodes, like the ends of the roots, and it gets like pulses of information. I don't know if it's chemically or electro based in any sense. Do you know?
Yeah, absolutely. I mean, at the molecular level, chemistry is, electromagnetism is one of the forces acting on things chemically. And plants share chemicals, all sorts of chemicals.
That's incredible, man. And to add to that, I actually, I forget who it was. I believe it was Dennis McKenna. He was comparing the mycelial network and to basically just like a brain and like all the neuro connections and the nerve pulses going around. He was kind of comparing it to that.
Yeah, cool.
Yeah, I don't know. Can you talk to that though, or comments rather?
Yeah. Well, something cool about these mycelial connections is that it was recently found that a mother tree can actually differentiate which seedlings came from her seeds, and she will
that fall near her root system.
Yeah, the seeds that germinate near the mother tree get nutrients from the mother tree. It knows its kin, opposed to other trees.
Whoa!
Even of the same species, it knows which came from her.
That's incredible. I would totally call it a mother tree,
yeah.
Or call it a her, even though it might not have gender. Well, it does, doesn't it? Though
it is both.
Yeah, trees have both. Unlike flowers or other plants.
Most plants have male and female parts on them, but a few select species like cannabis or meadow rue, they have actual different. There's a male plant and a female plant.
Okay.
Different individuals.
So it's like a different part of the species, or different species, basically, like a genus.
It's called dioecious. So cannabis is dioecious, which means there's a male plant and a female plant.
Okay. So that's what it's called when it's split up like that.
Mm-hmm.
So
most have both parts on the same plant.
Okay. So in that case, do they like pollinate themselves?
They can.
Like the male parts of it?
And that's cloning.
Whoa,
if they self-pollinate.
That's incredible.
Yeah, it is.
Yeah. I've never heard of the fact that they can differentiate their own seedlings. That's a new one for me.
Yeah, I think they just found it out a few months ago.
Wow. I wonder how they're testing this stuff, or how they're processing the data. Like, I wonder if there's a way at the moment that we've decoded to pretty much decode the pulses or the data that's being cycled through the plant.
Yeah. And
the seedling relationship. How the hell is that even happening,
Right.
Unless they're measuring electrostatic connections.
I don't know how they did it, but what if they, in known locations around the mother tree, they planted seeds that came from the mother tree, but then in other marked locations around, they planted seeds from other trees, and probably saw that the ones that the mother produced led to that. That could be. Yeah. That it was just very controlled in what was planted around the mother tree.
Okay. Do you think they get more nourishment in that sense?
Yeah.
Like they're chosen over other seedlings?
Right. Yeah.
Interesting. I wonder if that mother tree, well, I don't know if you know, do you know if the mother tree aids the other other seedlings around, even if they're not her own? Okay. Yeah, it's pretty crazy, man. Mm-hmm. So then that makes you wonder if that mycelial network plays any part if there aren't any roots and they're just seedlings, to connect to, or maybe they just feel that there's something there.
Yeah.
And then through the roots of the mother tree, where the mycelial network is laid out, they can connect and maybe differentiate that way. I don't know.
Yeah.
That sounds pretty crazy, though. That's even possible.
So orchids are probably the most diverse group of flowering plants.
Okay.
And each individual orchid species, or at least each genus, has a specific species of fungus that they coexist with. So every different orchid is connected with a different specific fungus. And
interesting.
That's just how orchids grow. They need the fungus. They need it, or else they don't grow. And each one is specific and individual, which is kind of unique.
Wow. So you're saying, though, that orchids have the most wide variety of different species of orchid?
Of flowering herbaceous plants, it's between asters and orchids, and we're not even sure which is more abundant. They're both equally abundant as far as we know.
Wow.
Because more plants are being discovered every year,
Yeah. So. Yeah, it's crazy, man. So you're saying that each genus, though, or each species, rather, of orchid, is it like a unique species of mushroom that it coincides with, or?
Yeah, as far as I know.
Okay. That's pretty badass. Yeah. So they have like their true match made in heaven. Like their
right.
Yeah, their true significant other that they need to find, or they won't continue living.
Yeah. That's symbiosis.
That's so wild. Another detail of this post that this guy was talking about, how the neural connections in the network, almost compares to like a human brain.
Yeah.
And he almost compares all that stuff just to how, like, it's impressive that we have it all connected and all everything in such a small place, which is our brain, but and all those connections and that information, like highway of nerve endings and synaptic connections and everything going on, like firing all at once. But it's apparently not as impressive, to see it in nature. Meaning, like, of course it's impressive.
Yeah.
It is equally as impressive. Who knows if even all this information keeps coming out about how intricate plants are and how they're more intelligent organisms. You think that'll change anyone's opinion on pretty much their plant-based diet, or, other hardcore vegans or vegetarians or stuff like that?
I don't think so.
Yeah.
Plants are an entirely different kingdom than we are,
Mm-hmm.
And I mean, it's just kind of a fact of life that you need to take life to,
right.
Not
continue
just
living.
Survive, but to thrive.
Right. Yeah.
But I mean, plants, I think, are still low enough down, you could say, or at least further away from us to concern a lot of people.
Yeah. You think we're enough removed for people not to give a fuck, basically?
Yeah. I mean, plants will release, just a reaction. If you cut down a plant, it will send out different chemicals alerting other plants around it to produce. A lot of times it's to up their resin production. So if there's a boring bug that goes into a tree, that dying tree will let the other trees around it to know to produce more sap.
Do you know what that would in turn do, though, as a defense?
Yeah, they have sometimes a lot of flow, so a bug will drill in through the bark And then once they get to the part that's growing, because, if you think of a stump, the only part of a tree that's growing is like the ring inside the bark. Everything inside that is past years.
Mm-hmm.
And that's all dead in the middle.
Okay.
So it's just like it's a circle. And so once an insect will get to that living part, the trees will just like expel a bunch of sap out there, and the bugs, it fills the gap.
I see. So it discourages the boring beetles to continue drilling there if they're basically just flooded with sap.
Yeah, But sometimes, like the case with emerald ash borer beetles, they have just decimated the ash population.
Right.
So.
Yeah, I know they're actually headhunting around the Chicagoland area here. Like some of the towns have quite hefty rewards for people who bring in actual dead or alive ash borers.
It's a fruitless sort of thing, though.
What, to be hunting ash borers or
it's just,
wanted beetles or insects, rather?
Yeah, with the problem with invasive species as opposed to just naturalized species. So naturalized means it's not from here, but it essentially plays nice and just kind of grows and naturalizes. But then there's this, I guess, class once it's invasive, and invasive species are just no good.
Yeah. Because they decimate all sorts of populations.
Right.
Like mess with the funk of the environment.
Yeah. And to anthropomorphize again, when an invasive species comes in, the diversity of the area just plummets, and because ideally this sort of master race invasive species wants just them to be there. But, so a lot of what we do is, increase diversity, because an increased diversity in species makes the whole ecosystem more resistant, resilient over time, and all around healthier, because typically having more species is just correlates just to
a healthier environment. I've definitely heard of, I'm sure you've heard of the major problems that they've run into in like introducing invasive species into like Australia. Like pretty much most of their animals there are not of there.
Right. Like they have a really bad rabbit population.
Yeah. And then I think the story goes where they have a rabid rabbit population. And then they basically initiated or introduced, I think it was just like bobcats to take care of the rabbits. And the bobcats started getting like, overpopulated. Then they just introduced something else to take care of that. That started getting overpopulated. It's a never-ending cycle. Unless humans were really good at balancing, the ecosystem, then we shouldn't be fucking with it. But clearly we suck at balancing anything. So that's why that area got all fucked up. Not that Australia's fucked up at the moment. I mean, I'm sure it is to some extent. But I'm not, postulating anything against Australia, of course. Because I've never even been there or done the research on it. But allegedly, all of this was, what happened in the past and after, since people have started settling and stuff.
And what's sort of depressing about it is that an extirpation of the invasive species is almost impossible.
Yeah.
In this day and age,
it just causes mass impossible. Genocide of a insect
to get rid of every single
animal
grass,
species.
That's just impossible. So
right.
It's just it's about managing or controlling, as opposed to trying to fix the problem. It's sort of a band-aid. But a very important one, regardless.
Right. Yeah, you can definitely band-aid something, but you can't, it's never going to fix the issue.
Yeah, I mean...
Always patch it up.
What a lot of people and nobody perhaps really understands is how connected everything is,
Right.
So when we go in somewhere and will spray all these plants and try to extirpate them. We're not just boosting the population of plants, but of fungi, of insects. With greater insects comes, greater pollination of different plants and food for other higher species. And that can go into, again, affecting some inanimate things in the ecosystem as well.
Yeah, like, for example?
I believe it was the wolf population at Yellowstone had an effect on the rivers.
Really?
Yeah, that
you would imagine they would not be at all connected.
Yeah, it was some cascading effect where the wolves impacted the deer population, which impacted.
Yeah, I've heard that.
Like different trees growing, and so different trees wouldn't grow on the shores, and so because they got eaten first, and so there wasn't habitat for the trout then, or for the salmon, because the trees didn't fall into the water and create of the river.
Right. But, that makes sense.
It's
certainly
a cascading sort of thing.
Right.
It's successional, as it's called.
There's definitely factors that, we can't even imagine to consider when, messing with the natural environment as it is. Yeah. So it's a preposterous idea just to begin to even control the environment. But then again, here you are, and that is your job, to restore the environment, to try to patch it or put a Band-Aid on, in a way.
We could reduce our use of spraying. We could, how do I say it, with bat houses and, creating habitat for dragonflies and for different songbirds. You can use less insecticide for mosquitoes, They go around spraying this really nasty stuff.
Are you talking about that those like spray trucks that pass around when it's like the height of mosquito season?
Right.
Yeah, that's I think the first time I've ever seen those, man, like I thought instantly I was like, that's gonna fuck up the whole environment.
Yeah, they come around at like 4 a.m. too.
Right. Yeah, dude, you hear them, man. If you have your windows open, you'll hear them come down the street.
Yeah.
Yeah, they're not quiet, but yeah, man, there's no way that could possibly be good. You're basically just gassing the entire little, village, like wherever it's being spread around.
Yeah, I've followed them on my bike, not a smart idea.
Oh yeah,
I didn't know what they were at the time.
Right. Did you smell any some anything?
A little bit. Didn't smell too bad.
Yeah, well, that's good.
Yeah.
So now you have irreversible brain damage.
Right.
2 years later. Yeah. No, of course I'm kidding. But hopefully you don't. Could well be the case. The next question would be, have the people that are distributing that spray, have they tested it long-term on humans? If the toxin or whatever, the pesticide is airborne, is it going to affect? Yeah, long-term, have they, treated people with it, inhaling it? Because obviously it's airborne, you're going to inhale it. Let's say you have a backyard barbecue, and that shit's coming by. There's kids, and everything else, playing outside. Even though they try and maybe say they're going out at 4 a.m. in the morning, it's, it's still something to consider.
Yeah. And, there aren't any studies on people because that's illegal. But they...
Well, that's almost hilarious. Why would you be spraying something that to study it even is illegal on people?
They, I'm sure, study it on rabbits and mice and maybe some other species.
Right.
But a lot of times what they do is just an LD50 acute toxicity sort of test.
Yeah, and that's nothing to do with... That's just at once. Isn't it the potent amount, basically?
The amount,
all at once.
Yeah, the amount to kill, usually with one exposure
right.
to the toxin, the amount to kill half of the test population. just in one dose. That's what the LD50 is.
Okay.
Lethal dose 50. Yeah. And so we know that, and we know that, if you were to drink this stuff, it would kill you. Very likely.
That's good.
Yeah.
Well, you're pretty much drinking it, through your lungs. Once it's airborne, the little droplets kind of just get sucked up in your bloodstream.
Yeah. Insecticides as a class of of biocide, are typically some the more toxic to humans. Insecticides. Yeah. Like I spray herbicide at work.
Okay.
And that stuff is still pretty scary because we don't know the effects. So I'm sort of a guinea pig.
Wow.
But some of these chemicals are not, it seems like I might not be subject to dangerous amounts. But,
Okay.
I don't know. In other ways, I already have been,
exposed plenty to it.
Yeah, I've had sort of reactions, to it.
Just like allergic reactions?
Right.
Okay.
Right.
To the substance itself?
Yeah, we spray a few different chemicals at work, different herbicides.
Jeez. Do they offer, are you wearing protection during this process?
Yeah, we have nitrile gloves. That's usually long sleeves and nitrile gloves.
You don't have a respirator mask or
No.
anything like that?
No, that'd be awesome, though.
I feel like that would be the first thing to even consider, If you're spraying something, you are spraying it, right?
Mm-hmm.
And it's landing on plants around you.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah, dude.
So that's
I
the
want to
scary
say
thing.
that's like a third, if not a quarter, at least, is getting sprayed, ricocheted and sprayed up and right back into the air.
Right. Oh yeah.
I've walking around.
I've inhaled it eight
Jeez,
hours
man.
a day for a while.
Wow.
So, yeah. Well, I'm excited about the future class action lawsuit that I'll be a part of.
Yeah.
Hope,
hoping it's coming one of these days.
I mean,
right?
the scary thing is that I haven't had a severe acute exposure, but nobody knows the chronic exposure effects.
Jeez, man.
So
that's crazy.
So I plan on quitting my job in a few months, actually.
Okay.
So,
well, how long have you done that? If you don't mind me asking. Okay. Yeah, that's a little bit of a time.
Yeah.
Is this, a common practice in your field?
Yeah, it is actually necessary. It's a sort of necessary evil.
To get rid of the invasive species.
Yeah, or else everywhere would be degraded entirely. Not entirely, but many. I mean, we're in a mass extinction right now. There have been 5 mass extinctions previously.
In what way do you mean that?
A lot of species are going extinct right now.
Like animal or plant or?
It's called the Holocene extinction, and we're in the middle of it right now.
Okay.
It's worldwide, and a contributor to it, and it might be some sort of feedback loop, but climate change is having a huge effect.
Yeah, I like how you did that. Climate change.
Yeah, I mean, it's.
I know it's such an overused word.
Global warming. It's
right.
Yeah, some things are more local, but
what if
still climate?
Well, isn't the climate always ever changing?
Yeah.
So, what if that's just the natural process of where it was going to go, regardless?
But it is essentially proven. There's, I would say, empirical evidence that humans are affecting the climate.
Yeah, I mean, that's obviously under big scrutiny in the public eye, like that opinion.
Shouldn't be.
Right. And, I mean, I'm under the, belief that
and
people...
Here, I'm going to cut you off, I'm sorry.
No, totally.
But, I mean, this is what I've heard, and I like, but people say the belief in climate change. It's not about a belief, it's understanding.
Right.
People kind of bring a sort of maybe dogmatic
stance
to it, or
right.
skepticism, where it's about a belief, like, oh, he believes in that, or she believes or doesn't believe in that. But it's really not a belief. It's like an understanding that this is.
So it's a fact of life at the moment.
Yeah. Well, there's about a 97%, acceptance in the climate community.
Yeah.
As far as doctors, doctorates, PhDs in climate science, it's about a 97%, or about 97% agree
Yeah.
that humans are causing climate change, and it's having myriad effects,
Right.
more locally.
Yeah. Yeah, I certainly believe that myself. And then again, I'm just looking at the same evidence they are, that they're presenting rather. So I'm sure they're even, exposed to a widespread amount of information in their own research. But, there's something definitely going on that it doesn't seem natural. But then again, even there's been plenty of wars and, bombs blowing up in the environment on the planet. There's obviously an incredible amount of radiation, for example, being still to this day exposing the environment, especially in like Fukushima right now, is still being exposed.
That's what I was thinking.
To, utmost degrees of they can't even send robots in there because they failed due to the incredible amount of radiation in the environment. It's absolutely insane. Yeah, it's the most unheard of time right now, and it's almost silly to even consider that we haven't changed the forecast for the environment, its lifespan. But I'm just saying the environment in general, like as the Earth's ecological system. It's almost silly to not even consider that any of those things will have repercussions.
Right.
Especially because everything works so symbiotically. And as you said, like even, mushrooms, for example, are closer to the animal kingdom than the plant kingdom, is that right? Is that a fair assessment?
I'm not sure about that.
Oh, okay. I don't want to get my facts wrong here.
Yeah, I have no idea.
All right, well, might have to look this shit up. But that's at least what I've heard from good old Paul Stamets, mushroom ecologist. But yeah, man, that's definitely a heavy, burden that weighs upon us. If it were true that we've totally, completely changed the course of the Earth and, the forecast of how the development will proceed.
And so we know that we have influenced the course of the future. We just don't know to what degree. And it's, every day it's different and increasing. Yeah. I think it's a very serious threat. As as big lakes are just drying up around the world. The Aral Sea used to be, I want to say, the third largest lake in the world.
Where's that located?
Could be wrong. It's Russia or Ukraine, Uzbekistan. So I'm not sure.
Okay.
But the Aral Sea, it's essentially dried up since the 80s.
Wow.
Yeah, it just disappeared. Yeah. It's incredible. Satellite images, you can just see noticeable effects.
Now, what's a way that that'd be possible for a whole lake to just evaporate?
Well, it's also human influenced, as far as diverting the water elsewhere.
Oh, I see.
For agriculture.
Ooh, okay.
Or,
like an aqueduct sort of scenario.
Yeah, everything.
Yeah.
Yeah, and it is essentially dry, if not dry now. It used to be a huge lake. Huge.
It's all those goddamn people moving in, encroaching on the lake's environment. Hashtag Lake Lives Matter. Yeah, dude. That's, something else that we do as well. We're just like, we need to reroute all these resources to our own crap we're making. The nature doesn't need it. Don't worry.
Yeah.
It'll find water elsewhere.
Right. And here in Chicago, I feel like we are sort of isolated. I'm not sure the word I'm trying to think of.
Yeah. In what way, though?
In that we have the largest resource of fresh water in the Great Lakes, in the world.
I see.
So we're sort of isolated from the drought issues in the rest of the world.
Right.
I think it's like one in 7 people don't have drinking water.
Yeah.
Just imagine standing in a room with 7 people. And 1 in 7 just are gonna die because they don't have access to water. But I mean, that's a population issue as well.
Yeah, that's huge, man. Yeah, it's certainly the case. We're just living in our own bubble, and we don't have to worry about it, so we're not even looking at that issue.
Right.
You certainly have to look, if you're gonna, fix or even start considering fixing the world's ecology, or like just on an Earth scale, you have to be able to address and understand what people are going through on the rest of the planet, or just in, not even the planet, let's say just in the US alone. You have to be able to, even Flint, Michigan is not too far away from us. And from what I hear, they're still, they still don't have clean drinking water there.
Yeah, and they're not alone. I mean, other places have
certainly
awful water as well. It just doesn't make the headlines for whatever reason.
Yeah.
I mean, inner city Chicago as well. They had a bunch of lead pipes. They still do have a lot of lead pipes. And
it's pretty messed up.
People are,
they're just slowly dying.
They're exposed to, too much lead. I mean, it's unsafe amounts.
Yeah. Now, I wonder if your body at that point can develop, if you're inoculated at least like a little bit at a time, if your body can, produce the defense system, or in any case, a way to clean it out of your system.
Sure. Potentially, but the thing with heavy metals is that they just accumulate, and there is no way.
That's true.
There is no way to get rid of them.
Yeah.
But I'm sure some people are more immune to the effects than others for a variety of reasons.
Yeah, that's a big problem in a bunch of like health shakes. There's I think muscle milk specifically went through that sort of
too much iron or something
lawsuit. I don't know exactly lead? What it was. I don't think it was lead, but it was just like heavy metals, and like people started having some health repercussions from drinking all those. But I think they assessed the issue, but who the fuck knows? But yeah, that's certainly something to consider.
Something I was really bummed about is I love tea. I drink tea. Used to drink tea a bunch, but apparently the factories in China will just pollute lead, like unsafe levels of lead, onto tea. And China's the biggest exporter. We're a pretty big importer of Chinese tea. And
so they allegedly poison the shit out of.
Well, there could just be
tea.
There's unsafe levels of lead in some Chinese tea.
Yeah.
So I just noticed one day.
Where do you get your information, Brian?
Oh, the internet.
Okay.
So it's definitely fact.
No, yeah, absolutely. There's no doubt.
Yeah, but I
don't even look it up. Otherwise, the moment you know that from.
But I was recently in China, right? And so I get off the plane in Beijing, and we're walking towards like the main sort of lobby. It's probably 3 stories tall inside.
Okay.
The Beijing airport, and I look up to the ceiling, and there's smog indoors.
What?
In Beijing's airport. Yeah, like up at
the
ceiling.
People smoking?
I mean, a lot of people smoke in China.
Yeah? Lead cigarettes?
Probably. Yeah.
If they're treating the tea with lead, they're certainly treating the tobacco with lead.
You could just smell it,
Jesus, man.
It smelled like a refinery in the airport.
Wow.
It was pretty crazy.
Never been. But doesn't seem like it would be the most opportune thing I would like to arrive to.
Yeah, I mean, the rest of China that I saw is all beautiful, but Beijing isn't my kind of place.
Okay. Yeah.
Too much industry. And on top of, not regulating as forcefully as America, they also get really bad sandstorms in Beijing. So it's just kind of double bad.
Yeah.
Naturally bad air pollution
and sandstorms
from industry. Yeah.
So then the sand mixes in with all the air pollution, and then it just comes down like raining a shitstorm. People are just getting taken out, man.
Yeah, and
there's like a superstorm of
people used to
like crazy stuff that'll accumulate.
People used to burn wood to heat their houses and businesses and everything, and now Beijing has banned that. So I guess it's got to.
Wow. So you can't even live off the grid anymore.
You gotta be in the outskirts of Beijing to light fires.
Yeah.
For heating.
That's crazy, man. Yeah, no, I'm sure they're, dealing with their own sandstorm, all puns intended, of ecological stuff as well. We got to be cognizant of it, Brian, if we want to fix the world.
Right.
It's not a small task, but you gotta, get people aware. And
what I'm really excited about is AI.
Really?
Getting involved.
Everyone I've heard of is goddamn terrified of that moment.
It's pretty scary.
Including the big boss of Tesla.
Right.
And Elon Musk.
It's a concern.
Is also concerned.
But the way I look at it, at least, short term, is that it's inevitable. I mean, we're going there, and
certainly
the course that we are on as far as the climate goes and industry, the military-industrial complex, that's a whole other podcast.
Right.
But the course we're on seems like a crash course, and so maybe AI could provide a lot of benefits to help us get through, at least over this hurdle that we're currently
into the
facing.
Singularity.
Yeah,
we'll just blast into it, and then everyone will be on a public scale,
so
on a public forum.
What is singularity? Because is it like there's different definitions of singularity, correct?
I'm sure there are. And I don't even think I've ever read all definitions, but I'm pretty sure everything is on a public forum. There's no privacy anymore. Everyone knows everything about everyone, and ideas and concepts would be known by all simultaneously. Once it pops into existence, everyone already knows it. That's a singularity, Brian.
Wow.
I don't know. That's what I consider it.
Cool.
Yeah, no, it's a pretty crazy concept, and I don't know if it'd be for better or for worse, but it might help us understand each other a little more. To bring it back around, I don't know if AI will ever benefit us ecologically. It might, of course. I'm just throwing out all options there. So, like, they could be, or AI maybe will just think about itself. And it's basically like, are we going to program into the AI the necessities of humans, or will it be very selfish in the sense of it'll start taking the oxygen out of the environment just to suit itself, because oxygen is not a most opportune environment for that, like the electronics, and just to mitigate rusting or corrosion or just natural elements bumping up against it? Or will we program it to clean the air and fix the invasive species problem? And
it already is. Not AI, but drones are being used.
Really?
Yeah, the limit...
It's a goddamn future, Brian.
I know, it's
Jesus.
Incredible. The limits for drones or, UAVs or whatever, is the payload capacity.
Right.
And so they can't carry very much herbicide to treat invasive species. But they can go out and, squirt on different plants, drones.
Yeah.
I mean, and once we get AI a part of that with higher payloads, it'll be pretty cool.
Yeah. And then people like you wouldn't have to go around poisoning themselves as they're trying to kill off other shit in nature that's invasive. So is your next job going to be operating a drone? Is that the future of wildlife restoration?
Maybe.
Operating goddamn drone.
It'd be really cool for photography.
Sounds like you're basically going to war with nature.
Yeah.
It's
I know.
It's like instead of being armed with missiles, this drone is armed with herbicide.
Yeah.
Herbicide missiles. You could kind of just...
Yeah. I mean, I tell people
intertwine the two.
I tell people I restore habitat, right? And then what I do, there's 3 different main jobs I do. And one is to just douse areas with herbicide.
Okay.
Is one, and just, a lot of times just kill invasive species.
Yeah.
The second is to just light the land on fire and do prescribed burns in areas.
Okay.
So I
toss a Molotov cocktail,
Smokey says to do the opposite, but we go out there and we just burn sometimes 100+ acres at a time.
It's my job, Smokey.
Yeah.
Get out of my way.
Only you can prevent, only you can start forest fires.
Yeah. Only professionals can start forest fires.
Yeah. And then
don't do this at home, kids.
The third job that I do is cut down trees.
Okay.
So I'm spraying chemicals to kill plants, I'm lighting it all on fire, or I'm cutting trees down. And that's how I create and restore habitat.
So you pretty much destroy the shit out of the entire environment that doesn't belong.
It's counterintuitive.
That's crazy, man.
But sometimes we even cull native species,
what does that mean?
Fairly frequently. So we will kill native species as well.
Okay.
Because there's what's called a coefficient of conservatism.
Yeah.
And it's from 0 to 10, and invasive species are zeros. And there are plants that are 10s that are, pretty... so the C value is a coefficient, and it takes all these different variables into account. So if a plant grows upland or is mesic or grows in wetlands, that goes into it. If it can grow in full sun and in shade, or neither, that goes into it. And different soil conditions, if it grows in clay or if it grows in sand. And so all that goes into the C value. And so some natives will be down at like a 1 or a 2, and they just grow everywhere, and we're not concerned about their population. And they will actually outcompete other native species that could be like a 10. So when I'm out there, I'm sort of thinking like Pokemon. I'm like trying to find the high quality plants, I'm just like running through the tall grass, That's my job, trying to find these plant Pokemon.
Jeez.
That's how I...
then they jump out at you and then you start battling them. That sounds so ridiculous, but that's pretty amazing, man. Yeah, I mean, that's what you equate your job to. That's pretty badass.
Yeah, I mean, besides the chemicals...
real life Pokemon.
Yeah, get to see a lot of beautiful places.
A big thank you to Brian for coming on and having that wonderful conversation. If you're interested in more information, I've left some links in the description below. If you'd like to follow future content, hit that subscribe button. Also, don't forget to follow us on Facebook at the Gypsypotamus Experience, on Twitter and Instagram at Gypsypotamus. That's spelled Gypsy Potamus. And I'll catch you guys next time.